So what if you could get all the perks of being a good person without actually being good? That's the core question of one of the most influential books ever written, Plato's Republic. And today, we're going to break down its powerful answer. All right, let's just jump right in with the big, provocative question that kicks off this entire thing. If you could have all the rewards of being a good person, the respect, the money, the power, without actually having to be good on the inside, would you take that deal? I mean, is justice valuable for its own sake, or is it just about looking good to everybody else? Right out of the gate, a character named Thrasymachus jumps in with a pretty cynical take. He basically claims justice is a total scam. It's just a set of rules the powerful invented to keep the rest of us in line while they do whatever they want. In his view, being unjust and getting away with it, well, that's the smart play. But Plato's own brothers, Glaucon and Adeimantus, they're not quite satisfied with that. So they decide to play devil's advocate and push this cynical argument to its absolute limit, creating what is pretty much the ultimate moral challenge. They lay out this brutal thought experiment. Picture two guys. One is a complete monster on the inside, but he has a perfect reputation and gets everything he could ever want. The other guy is genuinely, truly just, but everyone thinks he's a criminal. He's tortured, despised, and his life is a complete wreck. So they ask, if you strip away all the rewards, is there any reason left at all to actually be a good person? Now, to tackle this massive question, Socrates proposes a brilliant change of perspective. He says trying to define justice in a single person is like trying to read tiny, tiny print. So to see it clearly, he suggests they first design a perfectly just city, where justice will be written in big, bold letters for everyone to see. His logic is simple, but it's really powerful. If we can figure out what makes a city just, where all the parts are big and obvious, we can then use that as a blueprint. We can scale that model down to the individual soul and see what makes a person just. And what's really key here is that this city isn't just made up out of thin air. It grows logically from our most basic needs. First, our appetites for food and shelter give us the producers. But once you have stuff, you need to protect it, right? So that brings in the spirited warrior class, the auxiliaries. And finally, a city needs direction, which calls for the wisest people around, the rulers. And now we get to the heart of it all. Socrates argues that this perfectly designed city, it's actually a map of the human soul. He's about to zoom in from the city to you. See, Plato mirrors the city structure inside every single one of us. Just like the rulers, we have reason. That's our guiding intellect. Like the auxiliaries, we have spirit, our courage, our honor, our get up and go. And just like the producers, we have our appetites, that many-headed beast of our desires for food, drink, pleasure, all of it. And here it is, Plato's big answer. Justice isn't about following external rules or worrying about what people think. It's a state of perfect internal harmony. It's where your reason guides your spirit, and both of them work together to manage your appetites. It's about becoming the master of your own inner kingdom. But look, achieving this kind of harmony, whether it's in a city or in your own soul, it's not easy. According to Plato, it can only be properly guided by a very specific kind of person, someone who's seen a deeper level of reality. Now, Plato makes this really radical claim that only philosophers are fit to rule. And I know, that sounds incredibly elitist, right? But he uses one of the most famous metaphors in history, the allegory of the cave, to explain exactly what he means. Okay, so imagine this. We're all prisoners. We were born in a deep cave, and we've been chained our whole lives so we can only stare at the wall in front of us. Behind us, a fire is burning, and people are walking by with objects casting shadows on the wall that we see. For us, these flickering shadows are the only reality we have ever known. That's it. We give them names, we argue about them, and we think our knowledge of these shadows is the highest wisdom there is. The philosopher, though, is like a prisoner who somehow breaks free. And the journey out of that cave is painful and disorienting. The sunlight, the truth, it's blinding at first. But very slowly, their eyes start to adjust. And this is why philosophers must rule. They're the only ones who've seen the world as it truly is, lit up by what Plato calls the form of the good, the ultimate source of truth and reality. They get that all the things most people fight about, power, fame, wealth, are just shadows on a wall. And only someone who has actually seen the sun can lead others out of the darkness. So to really drive his point home, and finally answer that challenge from the beginning, Plato contrasts the just soul of the philosopher with its total opposite, the soul of the unjust tyrant.
And the contrast could not be more stark. The just person, ruled by reason, has inner peace, they're truly free. But the tyrant? He looks like the most powerful person in the world, but in reality, he's the greatest slave of all, completely controlled by his chaotic, unending appetites.
The tyrant is a slave to the bestial and savage part of his own soul. He can never be satisfied because his desires are a bottomless pit. He lives in constant fear, distrusting everyone, trapped inside the prison of his own chaos. He is, Plato argues, the most miserable man alive. Which brings us all the way back to that original question about the two men, the just man who suffers and the unjust man who succeeds. And it all leads to Plato's powerful conclusion.
So here's the ultimate takeaway. Being just is like being healthy. Being unjust is like being sick. And think about it, even if a sick person is rich and powerful, they're still sick. A just person, because they have a harmonious, well-ordered soul, is fundamentally well. This inner well-being, that's true happiness. And it is a reward far greater than any external honor or wealth could ever be.
So, as we finish up, we're left with one last question to think about. If Plato is right, if the just life is the truly happy life, we have to ask ourselves, in our own inner city, who or what is in charge?